My son texted me, "You are out of the company. Do not contact us anymore. This is final." I replied with just 2 words. "Okay then." Right after that, I put down my phone and began wiping out all his access. I locked down the entire property portfolio that my late wife and I spent our lives building. By the next morning, my phone had 46 missed calls. He thought I was old enough to be easily removed, but he forgot one critical thing: I was the one holding the keys to every door. Thank you for being here with me. Quick question: where are you watching from? And what time is it there? And have you ever had to make a split-second decision that changed your entire life? Let me know in the comments. Your story matters. My name is James Bennett. I am 60 years old, and I spent 30 years building Bennett Properties, from a single duplex into a portfolio worth $850,000 here in Indianapolis, Indiana. My late wife Margaret and I started with nothing but a dream and a willingness to work 7 days a week. We fixed toilets at midnight. We painted apartments on weekends. We learned the property management business the hard way, one tenant at a time. But nothing in 3 decades prepared me for what happened on a Thursday afternoon in late February. I was at the office in Fountain Square when my phone buzzed, a text message from my son Daniel. I picked it up, expecting something routine. Instead, I read words that stopped my heart. "You are out of Bennett Properties. Do not come to the office. Do not contact us. Melissa and I are moving forward without you. This is final." I stared at those words, read them once, twice, 3 times. My son had just told me I was out of the business his mother and I built together. For about 30 seconds, I felt my whole world tilt. Then the part of my brain that had spent 3 decades managing risk quietly kicked in. I did not call back. I did not argue. I typed 1 word. "Okay." I hit send. Then I opened my laptop. If they wanted me out, they were going to learn what that actually meant. I logged into the Bennett Properties Limited Liability Company portal and changed the password. Then I went through every account, every system, every access point, and I revoked Daniel's signing authority. I revoked Melissa's. Every permission that had my name attached to it, I locked down. Then I called Philip Gray, the real estate broker handling the 8-unit apartment building we had been about to close on near Butler University. "Philip, this is James Bennett. I am pulling out of the 8-unit purchase effective immediately. I will send written confirmation within the hour." "James, is everything all right?" "It will be." I hung up. Next, I called Dennis Wright, my financial advisor for the past 20 years. "Dennis, I need you to freeze any changes to my retirement accounts. Nothing gets moved. Nothing gets restructured. Nothing gets signed without my physical presence and written authorization. Can you do that today?" "Of course, James. I will explain later. Right now, I just need it done." Then I sent an email to Troy Anderson, the newer advisor Daniel had insisted we bring on 6 months ago. "Troy, effective immediately, all prior authorizations are revoked. Any and all transactions involving Bennett Properties, LLC, or associated accounts, require my direct written signature dated and witnessed. Do not process any requests that do not meet this requirement." I documented everything, every password change, every phone call, every email, all with timestamps. By 4:15 that afternoon, every door they thought they could walk through was locked, and I was the only one with the keys. By 6 that evening, my phone started ringing. Daniel, then Melissa. By the time I pulled into my driveway in Butler, Tarkington, the phone had rung 7 times. I walked into the house and set the phone on the kitchen counter. It kept ringing. I did not answer. At midnight, I turned the phone off without checking who had called, or how many times. I sat in the dark living room where Margaret and I used to watch television together. The house felt too big, too quiet. "I hope I am doing this right," I said out loud to the empty room. The house did not answer. I woke up Friday morning to my phone vibrating against the nightstand, buzzing in short bursts. Over and over, I reached for it and turned on the screen. 46 missed calls. 21 from Daniel, 15 from Melissa, 8 from numbers I did not recognize, and 2 from Richard Morrison, the attorney who had handled our limited liability company formation and every major legal document for Bennett Properties. Those last 2 calls made my stomach drop. I checked the voicemails. Richard's message was calm, but there was an edge to it. "James, this is Richard Morrison. We have a serious problem. Call me back immediately. Do not sign anything. I called him back at 8:15. He answered on the first ring. Can you be at my office in 30 minutes? I will be there in 20. At 8:45, I was sitting across from Richard's desk. He had a folder open. Limited liability company operating agreement amendments, membership transfer forms, signature pages. These were filed with the county clerk 2 days ago, Richard said. Daniel submitted them. They show Melissa being added as a managing member of Bennett Properties, LLC, with full signing authority. I leaned forward. I never signed those. I know, Richard said. He turned one of the pages toward me. That is not your signature, James. Someone forged this. The loop on the capital B is wrong. I stared at the signature line. He was right. These are dated February 10th, Richard continued. 2 weeks before Daniel sent you that text message. This was planned. I sat back. February 10th. 2 weeks of forging documents before they ever said a word to me. There is more, Richard said. He picked up his office phone and dialed. Dennis Wright. Dennis, this is Richard Morrison. I have James Bennett here with me on speaker. There was a pause. Then Dennis's voice came through quieter than usual. James, I need to tell you something. Daniel and Melissa came to see me 3 months ago. They said you were starting to forget things, that your memory was declining. They asked me to help move assets into their names. I felt something cold settle in my chest. And what did you say? I told them no, Dennis said. I told them I had worked with you for 20 years and I had never seen any sign of memory problems. I told them if they wanted to make changes, they needed to bring you to a meeting. They never came back. Thank you, Dennis. Richard ended the call and dialed another number. Troy Anderson, the advisor Daniel had brought on 6 months ago. Troy, this is James Bennett. I need to know what Daniel and Melissa told you about my involvement. Troy hesitated. They told me you had already approved everything. They said you wanted to step back and that you had signed off on Melissa joining the LLC. I approved nothing, I said. If anyone presents documents claiming otherwise, demand dated proof with verified signatures. I hung up. 3 months. They had been building this for 3 months, spreading stories about my memory failing, creating false narratives, forging documents, and I had been blind to all of it. But now I was awake, and I wanted to know exactly how deep this conspiracy went. By Saturday morning, I realized the damage was not just legal, it was everywhere. My reputation, my community, even my own home had been used against me. At 9:15, I met Howard Palmer for coffee on Massachusetts Avenue. Howard and I went back nearly 20 years to the Indiana Property Management Association. We were 10 minutes into conversation when he said something that stopped me cold. So Daniel's taking over because you are retiring for health reasons? I set my coffee cup down. What? Howard looked confused. That is what I heard. Someone mentioned it at the association meeting Thursday night. Said you were stepping back, that your memory was not what it used to be, and Daniel was transitioning into full control. Who said that? I do not remember exactly. It was just going around. People were saying it like it was common knowledge. The rumor was not just with financial advisors. It was in the professional community. People I had worked with for decades were hearing stories about my declining health, my failing memory, my voluntary retirement, and they were believing it. Howard, I said quietly, I'm not retiring. I'm not sick, and my memory is fine. What you heard is a lie. His face changed. James, I am sorry. It is not your fault, I said. But I need you to know the truth. Daniel and Melissa are trying to force me out of my own company. They have been spreading false stories to make it look legitimate. I left the diner and drove home to Butler Tarkington. I walked into my home office and opened the filing cabinet where I kept personal business documents, the one Daniel had a key to. I had given him that key 3 years ago when Margaret was sick. I pulled out the folder labeled Bennett Properties Operating Documents. Inside were drafts, documents I had never seen before, amendments with Melissa's name added as managing member, transfer forms, signature pages with my line marked pending in Daniel's handwriting. He had been working on this in my own house, under my own roof, using the key I gave him out of trust and love. This was not just a legal fight anymore. This was a battle for my name. At 3:30 that afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text message from Rachel Turner, my cousin on Margaret's side. She had always been quiet observant, the kind of person who noticed things others missed. The message was short. You need to see what Melissa has been saying about you. Call me. I called. Rachel answered immediately. She has been posting things online, Rachel said, about you, about the family, calling you toxic, saying she is escaping financial abuse. People are believing her, James. I closed my eyes. How long has this been going on? Since yesterday. Right after you locked down the business accounts, she is trying to control the story before you can. A two-front war, legal and reputational. A public character assassination happening in real time while I was gathering evidence in private. They were not just stealing my business. They were stealing my name. 30 years of building credibility in this community being destroyed one lie at a time. And the people supporting her had no idea they were endorsing a lie. I could not fight both fronts at once, unless I gathered enough evidence that the truth could speak louder than any lie. Sunday morning my phone rang again, but this time it was not my son or his wife. It was someone who worked with Daniel every day, and what he told me confirmed what I had been suspecting. Mr. Bennett, this is Trevor Walsh. I work with Daniel. I am the assistant property manager. I think you need to know what has been happening. I sat down slowly. I barely knew Trevor. Daniel had hired him about 3 years ago to help with day-to-day operations. He was young, maybe 28, competent with repairs and tenant issues. Go ahead, Trevor. His voice was quiet, like he was afraid someone might hear him. I have been worried about Daniel for months now. He has been different, stressed. Melissa shows up at the office constantly. She sits in on meetings. She makes decisions. It is like she is running things and Daniel just goes along with it. He does not seem like himself anymore. How long has this been going on? Since maybe November. It started slow, but by January it was every day. She would tell him what to say to contractors, what properties to prioritize, even how to handle tenant complaints. And Daniel just let her. I thanked Trevor and told him I appreciated his honesty. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about my son, about how Melissa had slowly taken control, about how I had not seen it happening. Monday morning at 8:20, I received a forwarded email from Philip Gray, the real estate broker, who had been helping us evaluate commercial properties for the past 5 years. The subject line was simple. You need to see this. The email was from Melissa, sent Friday afternoon to Philip and 3 other brokers we worked with regularly. Dear Philip, I am writing to inform you that James Bennett is experiencing early-stage memory issues and is no longer capable of managing complex transactions. For all future Bennett Properties business, please contact Daniel Bennett and myself directly. We have full authority to proceed without James's involvement. Thank you for your understanding during this transition. Melissa Crawford, Bennett Properties, LLC. I read it 3 times. She had put it in writing, not just rumors, not just whispers at community meetings, an official email to business partners claiming I was mentally incompetent. Philip's note at the top of the forward was brief. James, I received this Friday. I have paused all current discussions until I hear directly from you. Professional ethics require verification. Please confirm your status immediately. I sat down at my computer and typed a response. Philip, I have no memory issues whatsoever. I am fully mentally competent. The 8-unit transaction is permanently canceled due to unauthorized attempts to proceed without my consent. Any claims to the contrary are false and defamatory. I am copying my attorney and financial advisors on this correspondence to ensure complete documentation. James Bennett. I hit send. Then I forwarded copies to Richard Morrison, Dennis Wright, and Troy Anderson. Within an hour, I had responses from all 3. Richard used the word actionable. Dennis used the word fraudulent. Troy apologized for ever believing their story. By Monday afternoon, I had professional witnesses. I had written evidence of defamation. I had a pattern that could not be explained away as simple misunderstanding. But I still did not know one crucial thing. What was Melissa Crawford really after? Why push this hard? Why move this fast? Why risk everything on forged signatures and false claims about my mental state? Daniel had the business partnership. He had access. He could have waited for me to retire naturally in a few years. This level of aggression did not make sense unless there was something else. Something I was not seeing yet. I was about to find out. Monday morning, at 10:45, Richard Morrison called back. This time his voice was different, quieter, like he had just discovered something he wished he had not found. "James, sit down," he said. "While I was searching court records, I found something else. Melissa hired a divorce attorney, just for herself." I was standing in my kitchen. I sat down at the table. "When Upra, February 10th. I felt the room go still. "Say that again." "February 10th. 2 weeks before Daniel sent you that text message." I stared at the table. Margaret and I had picked it out 17 years ago. Daniel had done his homework here. "What firm?" I asked. "Patricia Turner and Associates, divorce specialists downtown." She paid a $7,500 retainer from an account in her name only. She kept this completely separate. "She was planning to leave him," I said slowly, "before they even tried to take the company." "That is what it looks like," Richard said. "She initiated it." I walked to the window. Outside, the February sun was weak and cold. "What is her plan?" I asked. Richard was quiet for a moment. "I think she helps Daniel take the company from you. Then she divorces him. Under Indiana law, business assets acquired during marriage are subject to equitable division. She could claim 40 to 50% of its value." I did the math. $850,000. 40 to 50%. $340,000 to $425,000. She was going to help him steal from me, I said, and then steal from him. "Yes." I stood looking out at the street. My son had betrayed me for her. He had forged my signature. He had spread lies about my mental competence. He had tried to take everything Margaret and I built, and the woman he did it for was planning to take half and walk away. Daniel was a fool. He was guilty of everything, but he was also being used. Part of me wanted to call him right then, to warn him, but another part wanted him to see it exactly the way I was going to show him. "Richard," I said, "do not tell anyone about this yet. Not Dennis, not Troy, no one." "What are you thinking?" "I want to save this for the right moment. Can you get copies of those divorce filings?" "I already have them." "Good. I want to arrange a meeting. Wednesday evening, 6:00, at my house. Daniel Melissa Yu is my attorney. I am going to lay everything out at once. Every lie, every forged document, every piece of evidence. And then at the end, I'm going to put those divorce papers on the table and let Daniel see what he destroyed his relationship with me for." Richard was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Wednesday at 6. I will be there." I hung up and looked around my kitchen, the dining table where Daniel used to do his homework, the counter where Margaret used to make coffee every morning. Wednesday at 6:00, at this table, where we used to eat Sunday dinners when Daniel was a boy. Now it would be where I showed him exactly what he tried to take, and exactly what his wife had planned to take from him. The letter went out Monday afternoon. Certified mail. Legal language. A demand for appearance. By Tuesday morning they knew I was serious. Richard drafted it with precision. Cease all false statements regarding my mental competence. Retract all communications sent to business partners and professional contacts. Appear Wednesday at 6 p.m. with legal counsel present. Failure to comply would result in formal litigation for defamation fraud and attempted theft of business assets. I signed it. Richard mailed it. Then we waited. Tuesday morning at 10:30, I was in my home office when I saw Daniel's car pull up outside. He sat there with the engine running. February, cold. I could see his silhouette through the windshield. He stared at my house for 22 minutes. I watched from the window. He never touched the door handle. He never got out. Finally, he started the car and drove away. I never went outside. At 3:45 that afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "We need to talk before Wednesday. This is getting out of control. Let us work this out." I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I typed my response. "You told me not to contact you. I respected that. If you want to talk Wednesday at 6 p.m. with Richard present, not before." I hit send. He did not reply. Wednesday arrived cold and gray. I spent the morning reviewing documents with Richard at his office. Every forged signature, every false statement to business partners, every piece of the timeline showing premeditation, and at the bottom of the stack, Patricia Turner's retainer agreement, February 10th, divorce filing, $7,500 from Melissa's separate account. At 5:30, I drove home to Butler Tarkington. The house was quiet. I walked through rooms where Margaret and I had lived our entire married life. The kitchen where we made coffee together every morning, the living room where we watched the evening news, the dining room where we raised our son. At 5:50, I cleared the dining table, the folder in the center, 2 chairs on the opposite side, Richard's chair to my right, 4 water glasses, nothing else. The table where we used to eat Sunday dinners together when Daniel was a boy. Now it looked like a courtroom. Richard arrived at 5:55. He set his briefcase down and reviewed the documents one final time. We did not talk much. There was nothing left to say. Everything would be said in the next hour. At 6:02, I heard a car in the driveway. 2 minutes late. A small power play, probably Melissa's idea. Daniel knocked on the door. I opened it. No greeting, no handshake. I gestured toward the dining room. "Come in. Sit down." Melissa walked in first, confident, head high. She wore a black blazer like she was attending a business meeting. She sat down in the chair directly across from me and met my eyes without flinching. Daniel came in behind her. He looked tired, thinner than I remembered. He would not look at me. He sat down next to his wife and stared at the table. Richard took his seat to my right, legal pad in front of him. Pen ready, they sat across from me. My son, his wife, the folder between us. 40 years of being a father. 30 years of building a business. 3 years since Margaret died and left me to navigate this world without her wisdom. All of it had led to this moment. I looked at Daniel one last time. My boy, the child Margaret and I raised in this house. Then I opened the folder and I began. 4 days ago you sent me a text message. You told me I was out of Bennett Properties. I trusted you, Daniel. I brought you into this business because I wanted you to have what your mother and I built, and you tried to take it from me. Daniel opened his mouth. I held up one hand. You will have your turn. Right now you will listen. I pulled the first document from the folder. The Limited Liability Company amendment with Melissa's name added as managing member. This was filed with the county clerk on February 10th. The signature on the bottom is supposed to be mine, but it is not. Look at the capital B. Look at the spacing. Someone forged my signature on a legal document. That is fraud, Daniel. I watched his face. He looked at the signature, then at me. No denial. I pulled the next document. 3 months ago, you and Melissa went to Dennis Wright. You told him I was having memory problems. You asked him to help you move assets into your names. Dennis refused. You never came back. Because I was not having memory problems? You were lying? I pulled out the financial summary. 30 years of growth. The $850,000 portfolio Margaret and I built from nothing. Your mother, Daniel, my voice caught. This business was hers as much as mine. Every property, every tenant, every dollar. And 3 years after she died, you tried to erase her legacy. Daniel's eyes were wet, but I was not finished. I reached into the folder and pulled out a yellow envelope. I held it for a moment, then I slid it across the table to Daniel. There is one more thing you should know about your wife. Daniel looked at the envelope, then at me. Slowly he picked it up and opened it. I watched his face as he read. The retainer agreement, Patricia Turner and Associates. The date at the top. He read it once, then again. His lips moved slightly. Marital dissolution, he said quietly. $7,500. February 10th. 2 weeks before you sent me that text message, I said. Melissa hired a divorce attorney and paid the retainer from her own separate account. She was planning to leave you before you ever tried to take my company. Daniel turned slowly to look at his wife. This is not real. Tell me, this is not real. Melissa said nothing. Her face was perfectly calm. Under Indiana law, I continued, business assets acquired during marriage are subject to equitable division. If you had succeeded in taking Bennett Properties, Melissa could have filed for divorce and claimed 40 to 50% of its value, $340,000 to $425,000. That was her plan. Help you steal from me, then steal from you. Daniel stood up. The papers crumpled in his fist. His voice when he spoke was barely recognizable. I destroyed my relationship with my father for you. He was shaking. I forged documents. I lied to people who trusted me. I tried to take everything he built. For you. And you were planning to divorce me the whole time. His voice cracked on the last word. He slammed his fist down on the table. The water glasses jumped. Melissa sat perfectly still, her face like stone. I had watched my son go through every stage of grief in the last 5 minutes. Denial, anger, bargaining silently with himself. Now he was somewhere between rage and complete devastation. The woman he had destroyed his family for had been planning to destroy him. The silence stretched out, Daniel standing there breathing hard papers crushed in his hand. Melissa seated expressionless, and then without any change in her face, she spoke. Her voice was calm, too calm, like she was discussing the weather. "I'm done here." Melissa picked up her purse and stood slowly. Daniel looked up at her. "Melissa," she looked down at him. Her face had not changed. No guilt, no shame, no emotion at all. "What?" she said. Daniel stared at her, waiting for something, an explanation, a denial, anything. She let the silence stretch. Then she smiled, cold. "Did I love you, Daniel? No? Not once?" Daniel's face went white. "Were you easy, pathetically so?" She turned to look at me. "You almost won, Mr. Bennett." "Almost." She walked to the door. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor. She opened the door without looking back. I heard her car door open. The engine started, and then she was gone. The silence lasted 15 seconds. Maybe 20. Daniel sat there, staring at the table. I stared at the door she had just walked through. Richard spoke quietly from beside me. "I have documented everything that was said here tonight. Every statement, every admission. I can testify to all of it if needed." I nodded slowly. Then I looked at my son. "Richard will draft the documents. You will sign a complete relinquishment of all claims to Bennett Properties, LLC, or we file fraud charges by Friday." Daniel did not look up. His voice was barely a whisper. "I will sign." I started toward the door. Daniel spoke behind me. "Dad, do not," I said. I stopped, but did not turn around. "You chose this, Daniel. You sent that text message. You forged my signature. You tried to take what your mother and I built together. I am sorry she used you, but you still chose to betray me. Her cruelty does not erase your guilt. It just makes you a fool as well as a thief." I walked to the door. "Richard will contact you about the signing. Do not come back to this house." I walked outside to my truck and sat in the February cold. Through the window I could see Daniel still sitting at the dining table, head in his hands, Richard packing up his briefcase. I started the engine and drove away. Daniel did not call, did not text, did not try to explain or apologize again. The following Monday, Richard called me at 9 in the morning. "It is done. Daniel signed everything. No arguments, no negotiations. Bennett Properties is yours, completely, legally, permanently." "Thank you, Richard." I hung up and sat in my office. The business was mine. The properties were mine. Everything I had built with Margaret was secure. But victory did not feel the way I thought it would. It just felt like I had survived a disaster. Barely. And the wreckage was everywhere. 2 weeks later, Daniel showed up at my office. He was holding a folder. Inside, he said, was his future. A business plan. He wanted $25,000 to prove he had changed. I looked at the folder in his hands. Then I looked at my son. "No." He blinked. "Dad, if you would just look at it." "No," I said again. "If your plan is solid, you will find other investors. If it is not, you will understand why I said no. I am not your safety net anymore, Daniel. You cut that line yourself." I turned back to my desk. Behind me, I heard him set the folder down on the chair. Then I heard his footsteps. The door opened. The door closed. I never saw the business plan. I never asked what it was. 3 months later in June, I closed on the 8-unit apartment building near Butler University. I owned it outright, 100%. No partners, no family involved. I hired a professional property management company to handle day-to-day operations. Dennis Wright agreed to serve as my financial successor if anything happened to me. The business was thriving. 6 months after the confrontation, I started hearing things through mutual acquaintances. Daniel was working multiple jobs, waiting tables, delivering packages, retail. He was living alone in a small apartment on the east side. He never tried to contact me. Melissa had left Indiana. The divorce was finalized. She got nothing from Daniel because there was nothing to take. I heard she moved somewhere south, maybe Texas, maybe Florida. I did not care where. I hoped whoever she targeted next would see through her faster than my son did. 1 year after that February text message, I was at the 8-unit building on a Saturday morning. I was fixing a leaky faucet in Unit 3. The tenant, a nursing student named Sarah, brought me coffee and thanked me for coming out personally instead of sending a contractor. "Most landlords would not do this themselves," she said. "I like to stay connected to the work," I told her. After I finished, I sat in my truck in the parking lot and looked at the building. Margaret and I used to talk about buying a place like this, somewhere we could build equity and help young people just starting out. We never got the chance together, but I was doing it now. Margaret, I thought, we did this together. I am still doing it. I hope you're proud. I thought about Daniel, too. I wondered if he was okay, if he had enough to eat, if he was warm, if he was safe. Then I reminded myself it was not my job to wonder anymore. People ask me if I will ever forgive Daniel. I tell them I already have. Forgiveness does not mean trust. It does not mean we have a relationship. It means I stopped letting his choices define my life. I protected what Margaret and I built. That is not cruelty. That is self-respect. Trust without boundaries is just an invitation for harm to walk through your door. You can love your family and still refuse to be their insurance policy. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say no to the person you love most. And if my story helps one person set that boundary, recognize that manipulation, protect what they built, then maybe losing my son taught me something worth sharing. I drove home that Saturday afternoon with the windows down. The June air was warm. Indianapolis looked beautiful. The business was secure. The properties were full. The tenants were happy. I had survived, and I was still standing. That was enough. Looking back at this true story, I wonder what Margaret would think. Would she be proud, or tell me I should have fought harder for Daniel? The truth is, this true story taught me something I wish I had learned earlier. Trust is built in years, but destroyed in seconds. Once it is gone, you cannot force it back, just because someone shares your blood. Here's what I learned from this true story, and what I hope you take from these grandpa stories. Love your family, but do not let love make you blind. Protect what you build. Set boundaries before you need them. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. I pray to God every night for Daniel. I pray to God that he finds his way. I pray to God the lessons were not too expensive, but my job is not to rescue him anymore. It is to honor Margaret and share these grandpa stories. These grandpa stories are not easy to tell, but they are true, and truth, painful as it is worth telling.